No thanks. Sunday school. Add account. Off the pews. Cushing. Thank you. Twitch account. Cushing Indian Baptist Church. Oh, consider. Nope. Okay. Well, it's live, so that's good. Let's see here. We're back to crazy stuff. That intro video I thought was a lot longer, and I did not plan on that to be that short. But nonetheless, welcome to Sunday School. Here with us. Let me get my stuff back up here. There we go. And we are in session 6 of our quarterly, I believe it's called. Looking still in Exodus right here. We are in Exodus, looks like 15. And again, what we've come to right now is I had the Passover meal, I had the great Exodus, right? Um and during that time we seen God's power, his display, right? Um no question as to who he is and what he's doing. He's rescuing his people. Uh but it it's not as simple as that for most people, right? Let's see here. Let me make sure I'm can you guys test? Can you guys hear me? I'm just making sure that you guys can hear me. Everything's good. Trying to find. Come on now. Trying to find our stream and I can't find it. I seen it live earlier. Let's see here. Yep. Looks like he's good. And I'm assuming it sounds good because it's coming through on there. So, anyways, uh would you um that's the wrong notes I have up here. There we go. So, parting of the Red Sea and uh, what God's doing, right? Rescuing his people, but that's not enough. Even when God does interject intervene in our life, um, doesn't necessarily interject himself. He doesn't make himself physically present, but when he does make things work for us, or maybe even work against us, so that we realize that he's in control, right? Some of us don't really, I guess, believe right away. We don't believe that the actions that are taking place, the plan that's unfolding before our eyes, is really him. Um, and we might get a little bit of sense that maybe we're responsible for some of that, right? Even for the bad stuff, right? Well, if I hadn't got into uh this scene or this situation, maybe it wouldn't have happened quite like that, right? Well, that that begins to sow a little seed of doubt. And when you plant that seed, when you sow it, when you keep on contributing thoughts to that um one idea, right, it can grow. And that's kind of the theme here in the time after the parting of the Red Sea. The Bible study author actually really has a good illustration that always makes me laugh, and I'm wondering if you guys kind of have the same reaction when you guys hear this story. So what he brings up is the illustration of the Three Stooges, and not the Three Stooges. Sorry, the the they do a skit about it, but the original skit was Abbott and Costello, and it's called "Who's on First?" And actually they listed out here. I didn't ever know the names back because I don't know that I even get through the whole thing laughing and knowing what's going on. But it says Abbott and Costello made it famous, first performing in 1938. Says the gist is that the baseball players have names that form the answers about their identity. It says who is on first, what is on second, I don't know is on third, why is in left field, because is in center field, tomorrow is the pitcher, today is the catcher, and I don't care is the shortstop. Is that second? Is that 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we're missing somebody. Anyways, oh, right field. Anyways, um, I didn't know the whole lineup there, but if you watch the skit, the comedy sketch, it's hilarious in that one person knows what they're talking about, and the other person doesn't necessarily know what they're talking about, but they're getting the information that they're asking for, right? And the way the Bible study author lines this up is it's the same way that God makes himself known to us. If we're seeking him, right? And we're trying to follow him, or to do what he's called us to do, and we open our eyes, right? We open our mind and our heart to what he has in store for us. We're going to receive him. We're going to be able to get that information. We're going to know it's him. On the flip side, like I can't remember who's which, but the one asking the questions, the ones trying to get information, is getting frustrated because he's getting the information he's wanting, but it's not in the form, I guess you could call it, that he is accustomed to, right? The same way when the Israelites were headed out into the headed to what God was going to give them, they had doubts. They had not a change of heart, but um, they are going to experience a change of heart here in before too long. But that's the plan, is that God's gonna rescue them. He's gonna provide for them. He's going to set them up and take care of them. Um, I said God worked in such a way that left no question who He is and what He can do. Uh, it says the celebratory song that Moses and the Israelites sang after the after the Red Sea deliverance included this verse: "With your faithful love, you will lead the people you have redeemed. You will guide them to your holy dwelling with your strength." Later, when Israel arrived at Mount Sinai, the Lord reminded them that He had personally carried them on eagle's wings and personally led them by His presence each step of the way in the wilderness. Redeemed people may count on the Lord leading them with His presence to wherever He wants them to be. As Paul wrote in Romans, all those led by God's Spirit are God's sons. The prophet Hosea quoted God to explain the deeper reason for God moving His people through the desert. It was not a matter of judgment or punishment against them, right? And um, when the generation was dealt with in the desert, this is important to understand, because just like the back and forth with the comedy sketch, it's not that they were getting wrong information. It's not that they um, were going against the information. It's just that they didn't understand. They didn't understand who God was, even though He was trying to show them. He was trying to. He clearly delivered them in the Red Sea instance. Even before then, guiding them and protecting them away from Pharaoh and his army, um, but also answering his prayer, right? And they didn't really understand. Maybe they had gotten to the point to where they were just praying just to pray. They weren't really, uh, obviously they weren't, um, not faithful, but religious enough, I guess you could call it, right? Much like today. That what this is lining up, right? Is what we see, maybe the church today, that we're all too often we're accused of going through the custom, the protocol, the procedures of, and um having a structure of what is quote unquote church, but we're not following God. We're not, and there's several instances of that. One of the things that we talked about recently, right, is the numbers that maybe churches promote or try to obtain, right? They set those as goals. Um, but what does it really mean to go and preach and teach and baptize and then be an example of that, going out and furthering the gospel message, right? And this is exactly what the people were um, not only accused of, but dealt with in a way. Um, it wasn't a matter of judgment or punishment against them. It said it was an act of love and compassion. The Lord had brought them to a place of absolute need, so they would turn to Him as the only one capable of meeting that need. He wanted to show His abundant love by providing for them, but they had to trust Him. Um, and then this is He's setting us up for what we're gonna be looking at. And as we read, look, this is what he wants us. The Bible study author wants us to decipher: is to look for indications that the people's situations were likely made worse because they were in the wilderness. How did God provide for His people in these challenging situations? Um, and moving on, can we get to that real quick? Yeah. Uh, that's not what we want to do. And this is something that we haven't been able to do in forever, right? Let's see. Can we do this here? When we seen that it was a little bit snowy out, we didn't want to forgo all of the church. Let's see here. That's not gonna be right. There we go. Yeah. So, nope, that doesn't work. Getting used to all this stuff again. Duplicate. When I initially set all this stuff up, I had a computer that could do certain things, and those certain things have changed over the while along with the computer. But that's okay because we'll make it through this. I wonder if you guys can hear me clicking around in the background. 16, 11. 4 verses. And there we go. It begins, and I'm a little bit choppy. And I think I know why. However, it says the Lord spoke to Moses. I have heard the complaints of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will eat bread until you are full. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. So at the evening, quail came and covered the camp. In the morning, there was a layer of dew all around the camp. Let's see. When the layer when the layer of dew evaporated, there were fine flakes on the desert surface, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they asked one another, "What is it?" Because they didn't know what it was. Moses told them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." And God often follows up mountaintop experiences with valleys of testing. Following God's victory over Egypt at the Red Sea, he led Israel into the wilderness of Shur, a desolate region in the northern Sinai Peninsula. The first big challenge they faced was a lack of water. After 3 days, they found water at a spot called Mara. But as the name implied, the water was not fit to drink. Instead of trusting God, the people grumbled against Moses. In response, God performed yet another miracle of provision through Moses. This was a preview of things to come, but the people's negative attitude and lack of faith also served as a cautionary tale for his people. Um, it says, even after seeing God meet their needs at Mara, the Israelites still found reasons to be unhappy. And this goes on to, again, them not necessarily uh wanting, I guess, what's good for them, what's enough. And we can kind of relate to that today because we think that we know what's best. We know what the best situation is for us, but only God knows what's the ultimate outcome. He knows what's good for us, he knows what's bad for us, he knows what we need at the right time, right? um and in this instance, even though he was providing for them, they were still not in that whole trusting faith. They weren't faithful. They weren't faithful in the sense that they were going to lash out at God. We're going to see some of those types of things happen, but again, they'd still have somebody to blame. How many times do we try to find that same scapegoat in our lives? Well, if this situation hadn't happened, if this situation had happened, right? Well, We might even take it further, and we might go and we might talk about people that are we think are the reasons of that. Well, they they quite well could be, right? If we put ourselves in situations and we're not around people that try to promote positive things, or or we're associating with people that go into negative things, or we're not trying to be that light, it very well could be that people could be a part of that situation. But more often than not, we're just not following what God has called us to do. We're not doing the things that He's called us to do. Case in point, New Year's resolutions, New Year's things that we want to change, right? We might say that we want to work out, we want to do better, and it might be a good thing to um, get healthier, change habits. It doesn't have to be just because of health, right? It could be monetary, right? Budgeting. It could be work related, right? You want to be more professional, those types of things. Um, but we might get on that angle, and we like, well, we need a partner. We need to do this. We need to do that. That might not be the case, because we might then become influenced to quit. We might do better for a little bit, but then we think it's because of a person, right? This is the same way the Israelites thought about Moses. They said, "Well, God's going to take care of us and everything," but then when things went bad, they always turned to Moses and they said, "Well, you're the cause of this. You brought us out of this." He's a representative. He's um not a reminder, a point in time where they had that change, right? He's a messenger. So the message was, God's going to answer your prayer. He's going to rescue you. He's going to take care of you. They didn't fully believe that. They thought it was through Moses. They thought it was on their own shoulders at points. Um, and because of that, right, uh, they're not fully getting the picture, and they're not not able to see what God is doing for them. And that's what he's the Bible study author wants to bring out in this point. Um, they were needing water. Water is essential. Li- uh, Not just liquids. Water. Water is essential to life. We're, I think, over 70% water, like 80% water. Our body, the Earth itself is like over 70% water. The reason that we have weather, the reason that we had to modify the way we're doing church today, is because of water. Cold water will freeze on bridges. Will do different things, and we don't have vehicles that can easily adapt to those types of things. Now we can put chains on and all that type of stuff, but then at some point it becomes well, we'll just stay home and wait for the weather to pass, right? That's the same way these guys needed to just relax and think about what God has done for them, because they didn't see the blessing in what they seen right here, that He was providing for them. Let's see. God's relationship with Israel in the wilderness involved an ongoing series of teachable moments. Like a parent raising a child, God patiently and consistently taught them what it meant to be His people in the world. In this case, they would be filled with the food He provided. More important, they would recognize Him as their only provider. The quail mentioned in the Bible are small migratory birds. Likely, this flock had stopped to rest after a long flight. Because they were weak flyers and tired, the birds would have been easy targets for the hungry Hebrews. The provision of quail is only mentioned here in Numbers and then in Psalm. It was not. It was probably not a regular event, but a one-time gift from God. The main focus throughout the wilderness years is placed on the manna. Well, what is it? And the question at that time, um, Moses answered is the the provision from God, right? And the bread the Lord has given you, and it can be found every morning except the Sabbath. God sent twice as much on the day before each Sabbath so the people could honor his day. The fact that it came miraculously 6 mornings a week for 40 years should have taught Israel to look humbly to the Lord to meet their needs. Um, it's a wonder that we're able to work so long and be have so many opportunities at having good health for such an extended amount of time, because this world is like I don't say crazy, but it's dangerous, right? But he provides for us every single day. Um, he's able to make us things, right? Give us intellectual ability to be able to carry out, um, uh, I guess you could say everything is meant to help with God's purpose. But it can be used for other things. It can be used for negative things. So much technology today. I don't know why there isn't more um, push towards using technology to further his message for each and every church. Um, and I say this: there are a bunch of churches that have internet, do some kind of um, worship. Mainly, it's just like it's a camera that's like on the main worship service, right? But there's so much technology at our hands to be able to transform it in a way to where we're not competing with that same idea. We have shows that are online that do that same thing instead of um, really thinking out content. Right? They just put a camera up and they just write out whatever play is acted out and whatnot. Um, that's not what God has blessed us with, the ability to bless us with. He's blessed us with intellect to be able to reach different people, to be able to inspire, to be able to help in different ways. And technology can be used in so many ways, right? And the same way about what the Israelites are getting ready to experience. They're they were crying out for help. They were rescued. They were delivered, right? All while not recognizing that God was taking care of them. And because he's taking care of them, they can focus on other things. Instead, again, they wanted to focus on the bad things. They wanted to focus on their hardships, their situation, right? Um moving on in verse 16. Let's see. So I was able to do that here. It's a little bit. Oh, there I go again. It's a little bit choppy, but I'll figure out what's wrong with all that here, and I guess afterwards. So this is what the Lord has commanded: gather as much of it as each person needs to eat. You may take two quarts per individual, according to the number of people each of you has in his tent. So the Israelites did this. Some gathered a lot, some gathered little. When they measured it up by quarts, the person who gathered a lot had no surplus, and the person who gathered a little had no shortage. Each gathered as much as he needed to eat. Moses said to them, no one is to let any of it remain until morning. Um, let's see. Verse 18 seems to suggest that one person from each family collected for the group. They may have pooled their harvest to provide enough for each person. However, it happened those who collected more did not have surplus, and those who took less did not experience lack. Paul may have been thinking of this principle when he wrote in the Corinthians about proper motives in giving. In 2 Corinthians, the apostle quoted Exodus in the context of generosity. He said, those who have plenty should share with those in need. So everyone, hold on, let me get this out of the way. Uh, so everyone would have what they needed to survive and thrive for the sake of the gospel. And this is an important concept even to today, right? Because he's taking care of us, he's providing for us. Uh, those who are greedy, right? They store up a lot, but they probably lack in other areas. And those who flip flop, right? Those who are storing up in faith or testimony, and they aren't sharing it, might be uh being greedy and taking from those who need that um spiritually. And that's what Paul was trying to touch on, is the same type of principle. um when God provides, he provides exactly what you require, what you're needing, and what the blessing is, right? And we might say this, we're blessed with being able to take care of things, um bills, all those types of things. The increases that he gives you is because he's giving you an opportunity to, again, work for him to further his purpose in whatever area that is. Intellect, right? um is he, if he's giving you a task to be able to educate yourself and keep on going through school and all that, well, it's probably to help teach and help bring up others, right? um I can't think of a better example than those professional athletes that uh get all the money to do whatever, right? um it's not a bad thing to have a big house and to do all that type of stuff, but wouldn't it be a better thing to be able to help the area you came from, to go back and maybe provide a little bit of that money back to the schools and the coaches and all those that helped you get there, those teams, because we see it right now. um, it would be cool if I think there's what, so 32 teams, 50 players, like 1,500, right? 1,600 players in total for the NFL that play professionally, that are on the roster, that are on the salary roles, right? Um, there's less than 1,500 major metropolitan areas. And if they go back and they help in some way, and there might be some that are overlapping, some come from the same areas and whatnot, but if they take up an area to be able to give back. Um, Not saying that they have to do that at all in their off time. They have to practice and be an elite athlete, but just a little bit, right? That's exactly what's being reflected here. Those who have a lot should share with those who have little, and so that everybody's taken care of. But those that have little, right, they don't that they're lacking, shouldn't worry that they lack, because if they're following God, they will be provided for. The same way that the ones who didn't take a lot, when they were able to consume it in their family, when they were able to use it, right? They didn't lack for anything. Um, God provided what they exactly needed. And I think that's important there, because coming out of the wilderness, or going through the wilderness, coming out of desperate times, in the place that they were at, being rescued, right? There's some that probably left everything, didn't have anything, but that wasn't the case, because if God had said, take your belongings, make sure you grab everything and all that type of stuff, so that you have a life after all this. That's not what he said. That's not what he had a plan to provide for him. The same way when he reached out to you and called your name and said, "Follow me," he has a plan. He's going to provide for you. And even though you might think that there are times, there are desperate times that you reach a low, you can't bear anymore and all that type of stuff. God has something in store for you to be able to take care of you. It might be in the form of people. It might be in the form of places that specialize in those things, but he's going to take care of you because he's sharing with you enough to be able to show others. And that's the gospel message in a nutshell. These people were his people were rescued from Egypt. We he's reaching out to you to rescue you from lifelessness. He's promised you a better way. That's what salvation is, and that's what uh well the holiday and the season that we just celebrated, that's what that meant. The birth of Jesus Christ meant that he was fulfilling his promise so that we have a better life ahead of us. We have something to look forward to, and we're not always um in our situation thinking about the things that bring us down, right? Let's see here. And so, is it? Yeah. No. Okay. And then we're gonna move on into these next couple verses here. It might be the next chapter. Nope. So again, we're seeing here. Let's see this one here. It says the entire moving on into verse 7 chapter 17, it says the entire Israelite community left the wilderness of sin, moving from place to place to the next according to the Lord's command. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So the people complained to Moses, "Give us water to drink." "Why are you complaining to me?" Moses replied to them. "Why are you testing the Lord?" Again, trying to show them, trying to be a good advocate for what God is trying to do and trying to show them. Said, but the people thirsted there for water and grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you ever bring us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What should I do with these people? In a little while, they will stone me." The Lord answered, go on ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take the staff you struck the Nile with in your hand and go. I'm going to stand there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. When you hit the rock, water will come out of it and the people will drink. Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. Um, and again, thinking back to what they were experiencing and all of that, they even said, and this is I guess the more knowledgeable quote from Exodus when they're talking about being in the wilderness is like, um, why did you even bring us out here? Um, why are we gonna die out here in the desert of thirst when we could have been okay, right? At this point, it's okay. We would have been all right in Egypt. That wasn't the case, but they were at that point to where again they were going to need to depend on God. They were going to. That's what he's doing here is that he's showing them that uh, they don't have to worry. And again, he's going to show his power through the striking of the rock and the bringing forth of water. Um, there's a place that people go back to and they try to show this is where this happened. Um, but in the testimony here provided by the Bible, right? Uh, he's able to bring out that uh, essential need. The same way when uh, the the tomb was sealed up, was a rock, was it was sealed up. There wasn't anything coming out of it, right? And when they went in, to go try to find him, and they moved the stone out of the way, right? He had gone because he was resurrected. He wasn't in the tomb anymore. He had been released. He had the life had been extracted from the rock. And that's an ever flowing uh essential need for our spiritual life, is knowing that God fulfilled his promise and that he was able to um there was a sacrificial perfect human to be able to atone for all the sin past, present, and future, and the need for us to be able to have salvation available to us. That was the requirement. And so again, a similarity to what how God has provided for us even to today. He was providing for the Israelites when they were coming out of Egypt, and even for us people today, He's provided a way for us to be able to have spiritual life in that um, the the sacrifice, the resurrection, and the everlasting life of Jesus Christ shows us that we can have the same thing. It's been um, made available to us. And the only way we're able to claim it, the only way we're able to follow that is if we go and we follow him. We recognize that he will provide for us and as he's done, and that we can continue to follow him and trust him, because the people here at some point we're gonna see they're gonna be able to trust that God delivered them and was going to provide for them. Now, when we say provide, we might, think of actual physical sustenances. But we just along with that, we also need spiritual sustenance. We need spiritual food. We need spiritual drink as well. And so this is um an example of that. What he was going to do in the future, which we recognize today as the the birth, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus. And so went a little bit long. Let's see here for our no, we're right about the right time. Um, I don't have the chat pulled up because I can't log into all the stuff, but um, we will be back here, or we'll be back. We'll be back here. We'll be back at church Wednesday. Um, So we invite you. We always have a meal beforehand. I'm not sure what it's gonna be. We have sandwiches, pizza. We have all kinds of stuff. We just want to invite you and start the new year off right, to be able to um, do what we've been called to do, and that's fellowship, to be able to testify, to be able to share our testimony with you, and to be able to study the word. I hope at this point, right, in the new year, that you've started some kind of goal to be able to grow in the Lord, to grow your faith, to maybe educate yourself a little bit with the Bible and with the actual word. Maybe some kind of reading plan, or just to set aside more time to study with him, or actually define that time that you spend with him, whether that's in prayer, whether it's in study, whether that's going to Bible study itself, right? Those are good habits to be able to upkeep, and you can start it with us Wednesday evening. um it's more, it's a less structured type of setting, whereas Sunday mornings we have Sunday school and the structure of church at our main worship service. So we invite you to come and join us Wednesday evening. Um, and then we'll be back next week. Sunday school starts at 10 o'clock. Worship service will start at 11. We got started a little bit late because, again, technology. It's changed in the past 5 years. We've been on online for almost 5 years now. It's remarkable. Um, 4 years straight and going into that fifth year, and that's it's fun. Um, but I think the Lord's gonna allow us to do something different, and so we're looking forward to that and getting in preparation for all that. Uh, we'll get around, get our main worship service started here, um, and we'll be back. So see you later.